Well, a very good morning to you. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
And in just a minute, our Morning Light panel. It's a great panel this morning. We'll go behind the headlines.
But first, here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show. Nearly 1 in 3 adults are overweight, and more than 2 in 5 adults are considered obese. So what does losing weight is not something that's not very easy, but what does the Bible say about overeating? A Pennsylvania doctor explains how we can make God the center of your weight loss journey. Plus, he's a regular Morning Light panelist. Radio talk show host Gary Sutton has lost more than 200 pounds. I talked to him about his journey to wellness.
The good news is, if you are struggling with weight issues, this is not going to be a show where you're going to be judged. And you'll find some helpful tips, but there's no judgment here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this morning, Pennsylvania's new House and Senate will take the oath to obey and defend the constitutions of the United States and Pennsylvania. It's something we've been doing here since 1682, when William Penn ordered an election. And the first legislature met in Upland, Chester County. Democrats narrowly control the House this session, and Republicans will control the Senate again. We'll ask the panel what a divided legislature means for serving the public. Can they get anything done? A new House member on the panel this morning will share his thoughts.
Oh, and I'm sure they can. It's certainly an exciting start. This is an exciting time of year.
There are times when a legislature is very closely divided, when surprises happen. And look, when you put your hand on the Bible, you're taking an oath to the people out there, not to your party.
Yeah. Certainly something very important. Well, it's been 4 years and a day since the shocking events of January 6, 2021, followed by years of litigation and court appearances. Yesterday, the electoral votes were counted, and former President Donald Trump's election was certified during a joint session of Congress. On Thursday, President Trump will appear at former President Jimmy Carter's state funeral in Washington, D.C. The two men reportedly had a cordial relationship. So what lessons from the lives of past presidents would help Mr. Trump achieve national unity?
I think every leader grows. I think people have said in the past few weeks they've noticed maybe a change. Mr. Trump is growing older. But the presidents who help guide, I think you always look to the past for the future.
Yes, for sure.
And Canada's longtime Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has resigned as leader of the ruling Liberal Party. President-elect Donald Trump recently floated the idea of absorbing Canada into the United States, saying many Canadians would love being the 51st state. But should there be a serious debate on creating the great state of Canada? It's an idea that hasn't been seriously considered since the Treaty of Washington. You remember that, in 1871. Is the idea of a great white north an idea whose time has come, or is 50 states good enough? We'll tackle these questions with the Morning Light panel this morning. And what a panel we have. Rob Lawson, what an honor to have you with us. Many people know you of all your good work in Harrisburg and many, many different capacities. We're glad to have you here this morning.
Thanks, Jeff.
Cynthia?
Morning.
Good to have you back. Good morning to you. Looking bright and joyful on this exciting day, and an especially exciting day for you and Beth and your family getting sworn in to represent the 80th District.
Just a few hours from now, yes, sir.
Are you nervous?
I wouldn't say nervous, not nervous.
What are you feeling? What's the big emotion?
This is the first time in a long while where I've walked into something completely unknown.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
there's a little bit of I just have to do it, kind of grab the parachute and jump. And trust that God is going to make sure I land the right way. So.
So you picked your Bible?
Yes, I'm using my father's Bible.
Beautiful,
Right.
Great. And then your seat assignment, where are you going to be sitting?
If I remember correctly, it's 106.
Exciting.
So we have flowers there waiting for us, and we'll be there taking the oath in just a couple of hours.
So let me stay with you. This legislature is divided, and
Yes.
it's a big difference between being in the Republican majority or the Democratic majority. Different spaces, different office assignments, different privileges. Do you sense, have you looked over at the other side of the aisle to say, I think I could work with that person and that person and that? Are there some bridges quietly being built?
I think so, Jeff. I think that something that I've told people repeatedly, and I remind myself of this daily, is that I really do believe that we have a lot more in common than we have that divides us. Both Republicans and Democrats, I think, want the same thing for Pennsylvania. We want good schools. We want safe neighborhoods, opportunities for our children. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, we want these things. Where we disagree is how do we get from where we are now to the goal of improved schools or whatever problem we want to address.
Agreeing on the problem is the first.
Right, and that's not, like I said, there's a lot more that unites us than divides us in those issues, I think.
Rob, cities like Harrisburg, other communities around here, either are tilted all Republican or almost all Democrat. The legislature is kind of interesting because, you know, it's split down the middle with a knife. How do you think people with very different views, different church affiliations, no church at all, different educational backgrounds, how can they do this and work together? What's your advice for the legislature?
My first piece of advice is something that I heard actually this Sunday, and I heard it again in the green room. We're all made in the image of God. This was a quote that Maya Angelou had. She said, "I remember that I'm made in the image and likeness of God, and I can work with other people by remembering that they are also made in the image and likeness of God." Wow. So when we get back to our basic roots of us being creations of the Creator, who are all looking to improve their life, we can find ways to work together. We may not agree on how we get there. We may not agree even on what problem we're focused on, but we all know that we have the same problems. We all want our kids to go to great schools. We all want to make sure that you don't want to pay a lot of money in taxes, but you want great services. Now, right. How do we make that happen? And that's where the crux hits. And if we can say, let's find that common goal and work towards it, maybe something that I propose would be great, and maybe something that you propose would be greater, and we could just blend it together and get to that finish line.
Is this realistic, what Rob is saying here, Cynthia? But, I mean, you have to start there, don't you, with either someone's made in the image of God or they're not. If they are, you've got a problem if you decide you're going to treat them as a Democrat or treat them as a Republican, not as a human being.
Yeah, and the work starts today. That's what we were talking about. The work doesn't start in a month or in a year. The work has to start today. And I think part of it also is getting to know them personally, whomever them might be, Republican or Democrat, to know exactly what is the goal. You know, that was the other thing we were sort of talking about in the green room was we all kind of think we're right. We're not coming in this going, I'm the bad guy, right, and I want to do the wrong thing. Right. Now figure out where that common ground is. It's not easy.
I think the term is good faith, right? I mean, sure. You have to enter into these conversations with good faith. Let's talk about the other big change that's happening, a changeover in administration. If you go to Washington today, the construction is underway for the inaugural stage. What's your advice, looking back at all of the presidents? We've taken a deep dive on President Carter's characteristics this week, but giving advice to President Trump. He seems to be open, a little more open perhaps this time, to taking some advice and maybe listening to others. He's going to be attending President Carter's funeral. What's your advice to him? Who should he look back to?
I think as much as it is possible, I mean, Trump is a big personality. And he fills arenas with his personality, and I don't think there's ever going to be anything that diminishes that too much. But if he could, in a authentic and humble way, kind of reach across to people that may be perceived as his political opponents and say, "Hey, give me the idea." You know, he has at times, it's come up in his speeches, touted his ability to organize good teams, get a good team of leaders together to solve a problem. Let's get a deal done. Well, let's see some of that. Let somebody else be the one who has the good idea, bring that to the table, and champion that idea. Be a team leader. If he could do that, build a team and be a good team leader, then I think he could be working on a legacy.
When President Trump is walking the halls during his sleepless nights, looking at the portraits of the presidents in the White House, which one should he be talking to?
Well, right now, I think you should be talking to Jimmy Carter, because isn't that who we're talking about? Yeah. You know, you want to talk about humble, faithful man. And he has to, you know, President Trump has to sort of get out of his own way and do what he said he was going to do. Learn from his mistakes and really approach his presidency, I think, with goodness, kindness, and look towards, we are the United States of America. And his number one goal is what he talked about, is uniting these states of America.
Well, if he tweets about you this morning, you'll know that he liked or didn't like what you had to say. Rob?
I think also in the same vein, Abraham Lincoln, you know, he surrounded himself with people who were not his political allies. But he took their information. He stayed true to himself, but he looked with what they could bring to the table, how they could help him bring another constituency around to look at that final goal.
The team of rivals.
The team of rivals. And Trump is putting together a rather impressive team, whether you follow him or not.
Right.
But what he's doing is he's putting some people around him, but they're not all conservatives.
Yeah.
And they're not all going for the same, I'd say, like MAGA ideology, but they're all looking to help move him forward. And I think if he takes the information from some of these people, some of his political rivals who he's brought on staff now, and takes the good of what they can offer, and
That's
also some of his old rivals. Another president that was in front of him, Barack Obama, who took Mitt Romney's plan for health care to advance it forward, because that was something he believed could be bought by Republicans.
Out there.
He has examples of people that he could lean on and say, let's take these ideas and let's move the country forward. I love that. He did bring in a lot of disaffected Democrats to his ticket.
Sure.
So he has people that will support him that may not support his political ideology. So he has an opportunity.
It's helpful. All right, we're going to talk about Canada. Closing words here. Let's take 30 seconds apiece. Yes or no on going north?
I think
we wouldn't have to go to the border crossings anymore.
Let us make sure that our own house is in order before we annex someone else's house.
So if the Canadian ratification treaty comes to the legislature, you're currently a no vote.
I'm a no vote.
Okay.
I am a no vote. I think he needs to be inaugurated and get into office. And I think we need to sort of take a breath. And I'm going to take Mike Pence's line. I'm praying for him.
Excellent. Rob.
All right. So my heart says I'd love to go to Toronto and not need a passport.
Right.
But at the same time, we have enough to deal with here in the U.S. And of course, we have to try to make sure that we stay friends with Canada, so that way we get the great maple syrup and all that. So
Hockey.
Yes, hockey, absolutely.
By the way, have you ever had the maple syrup? We were in Montreal. Rebecca and I went up last year. It's a maple syrup. It's a maple syrup stick, and they roll it around in the snow, and it's good stuff. But listen, I think the point you made, which is praying for our leaders. This is not a bad day to put the Scott Bargers in the legislature and the president and others, the cabinet, on a list, keeping it by the nightstand, sticking it in your Bible, and praying in real ways for their protection of their families, for clear heads, and for the ability to love the person in front of them.
Sure.
I wish you the very, very best today.
Thank you.
Scott, exciting times for you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to our Morning Light panel for joining us today. Coming up next on Morning Light, the love of food and drink can be an idol in our lives. So how can Christians approach weight management biblically and effectively? Debra sat down with Dr. Rich Rayner with Aspire Health Concepts. And good morning to Hershey and our friends at Derry Presbyterian Church. You're watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
1 Corinthians 6:19 says, your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. God cares about every aspect of your life, including how you eat. As Christians, how should we approach weight loss? I sat down with Dr. Richard Rayner with Aspire Health Concepts. He says the first step is being honest with yourself. As a doctor, as a Christian, how do you talk to your patients who are overweight? For some, it's such a delicate issue.
Yeah, it is a delicate issue, especially in our culture. And so we tread carefully, right? And especially recognizing that all of us have a different story. Every patient has a different story of how they got to where they are with whatever weight they are when they come to me. And so try to listen carefully, look for hints of where things might have broken down. And, what are their expectations? I've worked with patients whose families have, when they lose weight, tell them they look too thin and they're just getting to that. So everybody has a story. Try to listen and see where they might be off on their facts and where I can sort of help them, move them in the right direction.
So let's talk about the weight gain. So what leads you to gaining weight? I mean, that's such a deep issue.
It is. It's simultaneously simple and it's also complex, right? It's simple in that we gain weight. Fat is a storage of energy. And so if we take in too much of energy, then it gets stored in that way. And yet at the same time, there are a lot of factors that are involved. For instance, metabolism, which is largely driven by a person's muscle mass. So the elderly lady is not going to have a lot of that, so her caloric needs are less. Also, there's genetic factors, families, have certain body types as well as tendencies towards weight gain. And also just medications that you could be on, other medical conditions that might predispose you to gain weight. So it's simple, but yet complex.
So what are the first steps that someone could take to say, hey, I want to lose weight. The New Year's approaching, and that's one of those things that people do say, I'm definitely going to lose the weight. What are the first steps?
I think one thing that I can help people with is to honestly assess where they're at. And sometimes that could be the most difficult step, right? Because, I really don't eat that much or whatever, but we don't realize all these different factors that come into it. We tend to overestimate our exertion and our energy expenditure, and we sort of underestimate the calories that we've taken in. So an honest assessment first. And then also try to find out where does the patient break down? Is it a problem with habits, that they go from dinner, clean up, and go and sit in front of the television and bring out the snacks whether they're hungry or not? Is it that, that we just have kind of valued comfort more than energy or exerting ourselves? And just, do I even know what the right foods are? Because we're tricked a lot of times into thinking that this is a healthy thing, and really it's not. Throw spinach in the dip and it's got to be healthy, right? And it's not. So just trying to identify those things, and then asking the patient to humbly assess, okay, where could I go with this?
Yeah, I know that I'm a stress eater, so I know it's like I start grabbing the chocolate and things like that. So I think you really do, you have to identify, why you're eating these different things, and then mentally stop doing it, making that decision.
Right. So, again, the scriptures tell us that we always engage our hearts and our minds, right? So, so that's what I'm saying. There's material things in front of us that we can look at and assess. What am I actually doing? And then also, what's driving me? Am I really trying to, sort of put as I said in another broadcast, edible Band-Aid over my, difficult emotions? Or do I really need this food? And I need to replace that energy.
And pray about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we tend to separate things out, like physical things, like, oh, this is not something that I really pray about. But if it is something that's a result of a desire that might be off base, then that's definitely, we bring it to the Lord, who wants to help. And I want to help people too. So it's just that combination of mind and heart, and then, making the decisions.
Dr. Rayner, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the best advice is don't quit. Focus on progress, not perfection. Weight loss does require hard work. And the temptation to give up when the going gets tough can lead you back into unhealthy eating patterns. Again, as Dr. Rayner suggested, have a talk with your doctor before starting a weight loss plan. And coming up next on Morning Light, radio talk show host Gary Sutton appears regularly on our Morning Light panel. He has struggled with weight gain for most of his life. Hear how he lost 200 pounds and is keeping it off. That's right after the break. Welcome back. He weighed 450 pounds and was eating the wrong foods, and was racing through life. But radio talk show host Gary Sutton knew he needed to make a change. I talked with Gary about what sparked his weight loss journey and how his faith is helping him keep off the pounds. Gary, thank you for being with us. Share with us your journey.
I think about 5 years ago, I weighed about 450 pounds. Don't ask me how you ever...
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I know. Don't ever ask me how you get to that point, but you do. Some people do. I didn't have any governor on my appetite. I was running from place to place and eating at bad times and eating the wrong things and really just racing through life. And my wife, my mother had just passed away. And my wife and I were talking, and my wife said, I think I'm going to get this surgery, the gastric bypass surgery. And I said, well, okay. She said, we're about 15 years difference. And she said, I want to be around for a while. And I thought about that. And I thought about, I want to be around for her. And we have had a wonderful marriage. And in fact, we've never even had an argument to this day, which is amazing, especially the fact she lives with me and hasn't had an argument to this day. But so I thought about that. I thought, well, if she has the courage to do that, I can do it too. And so I decided to go have the sleeve done. She had the gastric bypass done. That's a much more intricate surgery than what I had done.
Yes.
And so within 3 months, both of us had it done. That was 5 years ago in 2019. And we've both managed to keep the weight off since then. So it's been quite an interesting journey. The biggest thing I can say about it is where I didn't have a governor on my appetite before, I have a governor now. And I found also that life has become a little bit more interesting to live. That you're aware of things a little bit more, and I'm really thankful for that. So I felt really good. I'm in the best shape of my life at 73, and feeling like I'm going on 20.
How did God help you through this journey?
Well, he helps us through all the journeys, doesn't he, if we rely on him. And I think, I used to think I was in control of a lot of things, and it goes far beyond just the weight. I used to think that I was in control, and I found out that I wasn't in control of anything. And that, in fact, if I let God control things and if I leaned on him and had faith that he was going to help me to do the right things and see the right way in all aspects, that things would go well. And that's what I really looked at. And I remembered something in Romans about, presenting yourself in good spirit and body. I'm paraphrasing a bit. But making sure that, you can't have your spirit if your body's not there to help carry it. And I think the idea of wanting to help others and be around others and share with others, your body has to be in a decent shape to be able to do that. So that was kind of how I think he helped me along the way, and he's been my strength ever since.
And it's so nice that you and your wife are working together. So how do you do it when you go out to dinner?
We go out, we split dinners. We're careful about what we eat, and we split dinners, and we usually bring home, we have more leftovers in our refrigerator than you can imagine, and they usually last about 2 or 3 or 4 days. We can eat anything, but we eat them in much, much smaller amounts now. And your stomach now is about the size of a fist, so it's not very big. And unfortunately, people don't make food in those amounts. But you know what? We found a way to kind of do that together. And it's interesting. We find a way of sharing and bringing the rest home. And it takes another 2 days to get rid of that. So it's worked out pretty well. And it's much more economical, I might add.
That is true. And as we were talking earlier, you are able to do things now that you weren't able to do a number of years ago.
I play a lot of golf. And for about 25 years, I hadn't walked 9 holes of golf. I now walk 18 holes of golf regularly. I have 2 fake knees, which I got when I weighed a lot, but that has not stopped me. I'm able to walk. I'm not out of breath. My heart rate's good, and I feel like I'm 20 again. So I don't. My body.
And you look 22.
Well, my body reminds me I'm not 20, and my head, top of my head reminds me I'm not 20. But I tell you what, God's been so good, and He's there every day. And you know, when you start your day with Him and you just thank him for allowing you to be mobile again and to do the things that you want to do. I coach basketball. I'm on the floor for 2 hours every night with our team at Central York High School, and I'm never out of breath. I'm never tired, and the reason is because God has been so good and helped me to lose the weight and helped me to be in shape. He's worked on me pretty well with the physical side. He's working harder on me now on the mental side and the spiritual side, and very glad to be able to do that too.
Oh, that is wonderful. And really, you gave us so much inspiration. And it's something that you do have to pray about. Yeah. If you're struggling with weight, pray about it every morning when you wake up. God, help me make the right decisions when I'm getting ready to eat.
That's so true, Debra, that you know, when you're starting your day and you look out at the day, you do plan yourself out pretty well spiritually, and you plan yourself out physically during the course of the day. Here's where I'm going to be today. What are the things I'm going to do? I always kind of have a calorie counter in the back of my mind, but God's always at the basis of all of that, and that's the important thing to remember.
Gary, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can listen to Gary on WBAL News Radio every Saturday morning from 7 until 10, and beginning on January 14th on WOYK from 6 to 9 each weekday morning. Stay with us. We're back right after the break.
Welcome back. Well, it was January 3rd, 2001 when I took the oath of office to become a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. I was just out of college, elected as the youngest member of the time, but it was an even bigger day for me because I had planned a surprise, proposing to Rebecca Collins. The plan was to have the House's chief page, Cuppy Sugar, surprise her with the ring in the box. And at the precise moment, I had my hand on the Bible, promising to preserve and protect and all the rest. I took the oath, looked back at her, and she mouthed the words, yes. We were married a year later, and because of God's grace in our lives, now have 4 incredible children. Marriage is awesome, it matters, and today we're celebrating. Go check on your neighbors. Thanks for watching today. God bless you.